So we have new AEW Tag Team Champions, and the Elite are starting to fall apart. Overall, I thought that All Out was a pretty good show, but it was not without some controversy and a match that fell a bit flat for my taste. What's up, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. Thanks for tuning in to the AEW All Out post-show for September 5th, 2020. Thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this as a podcast, please head over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel because we do this show live. And if you hit the bell notification, it will let you know as soon as a live stream is scheduled. This is really important for New Japan stuff because it is all over the place because they don't have a set schedule. Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern is the typical time for the AEW Dynamite post-show, so you can hang out with us there, ask questions. If you have any mailbag, suggestions, comments, feedback, all that fun stuff, send it to eric@thatswrestling.com. Also, there is a Discord server you can join. That link is in the description and show notes. And head over to iTunes and leave us a review. It really helps the show out. Plus, I am looking for some additional help with co-hosting New Japan shows. So if you're interested, send an email to eric@thatswrestling.com. So let's get into this. And back again, I have Dave Colarusso. How's it going, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good. It's been a while since we talked to you. I think the last pay-per-view was the last time you were on.
I believe so. That seems right.
So anything happening in your fun life?
No, I am back in class, and I'm just hammering away on my own personal podcast and just enjoying all this wrestling.
All right, so I don't even know where to start tonight because we had a whole bunch of things happen on this show. So let's get out the massive controversy here, and let's go straight to the Matt Hardy situation that we had. This seems to be the talk of the town right now, and so for people who did not watch the show, we had Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. They were in what they're calling a broken rules match. So it was basically a last man standing match. And if Matt Hardy lost, he was going to leave AEW. So this starts right away over near the football field where, actually on the football field, and they meet up, and we have Sammy with a golf cart, and he nearly runs over Matt. So a nice callback to that hilariousness running into the match, I think, before and during the Stadium Stampede. And they're just brawling out on the concourse. They fight on a steel picnic table. Matt gives him Sammy a DDT on the table, and then they climb up onto this scissor lift, and there's two tables set up down below. It's they say it's a merchandise table, but you know, it doesn't have much merchandise on it. Anyways, they go up a little bit, and Matt Hardy looks like he wants to give Sammy a side effect off, and then Sammy ends up countering that and basically kind of gives him a spear off the scissor lift, and they fly way too far. Basically, Matt's lower back and butt hit the farthest away table, and that was about it. He crashed down on his shoulders and head right to the concrete, and he was knocked out. And we were in the chat debating, well, is this a work or is this a shoot? Is this a work or is this a shoot? And then like the doctor came in, and Aubrey like called off the match. She threw up the X, and the doctor was kind of talking to Hardy a little bit, and Sammy kind of kept busy, just jaw-jacking and all that fun stuff. Eventually, it looks like they're going to allow Matt to continue on, and they actually had rung the bell here. So Matt like stands up. He's being held back by the doctor, and Matt continues down a kind of a broken Matt Hardy speech pattern, I guess, if you will, and saying that he's going to delete Sammy. So here we were in the chat like, what is going on? Is this real or not? And then they let him continue on, and Sammy is trying to bring Hardy towards the the ring at Daly's place. So they're about out in the concourse, and Hardy cannot stand. He is like falling over, and I think the thing that cemented it for me that this was real, that Hardy was definitely on Dream Street, is he actually grabbed onto Sammy's trunks to try to hold himself up, and he ended up like pulling his trunks down almost. But then they continue on towards out into the arena, and they restart the match, and basically, not much happened. They just kind of fight over to some scaffolding. They climb up, and Matt knocks Sammy off and through the stage, and Sammy can't answer the 10 count. So we were in the chat. We're like, did they just go straight to the finish? So we were like completely confused. So what was your thoughts going through this? Because we were in the chat room together, but it was a bit scary how this would happen.
So when we were first talking about it, I was like, Matt Hardy is probably the best seller I've ever seen. Like, this is unbelievable. And now that I'm going back through it, I'm thinking this is very, very uncool. So I've done my own share of martial arts, mixed martial arts and stuff like that, especially being in the military. And I've blacked out myself from a guillotine choke. And all I remember is being picked up. I could barely stand. And then I talked to the people afterwards, and they were like, you looked absolutely whitish purple. And I'm looking back, and I'm remembering what Matt Hardy looked like when they picked him up, and he was the same exact color. So if you take a 15-foot drop off a scissor lift and you bounce your head off the concrete, like, I get it, kayfabe and all that stuff aside, like, I know you want to keep the promotion strong and make yourself look like a badass, but, like, when you fall 15 feet and you bounce your head off the concrete, it's over. You're done. And I know you want to finish, but it's not smart anymore. You need to finish. Like, you're done. You're done. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, he was knocked out, and this we're back to this debate again. This happened to, I remember talking, it was almost the same exact thing. This happened to Kenta back last fall at a New Japan show in the UK, and yeah, it was for the Never Openweight Championship. I'm pretty sure it was, and he got knocked loopy, and instead of just ending the match, he was facing Evil, I believe, or was it Ishii? I know, it doesn't matter. Anyways, his opponent, kind of backed off, gave him a little time, and he was definitely loopy the whole time. But yeah, this is one of those things that if a guy is knocked out, even for a couple seconds, that is the end. You call off the match, and whatever fallout comes from it, you just have to deal with. Mm-hmm. And in this case, he was knocked out for more than like 5 seconds. He was down. And then did you watch the media scrum?
Yeah, I skipped specifically to Tony Khan's.
Yeah, so Tony was talking about how the doctor, cleared him to continue. It's like the doctor had like a minute with him. And if you get knocked out, that's it. That's the end of it. You need to go to the hospital and take care of stuff, regardless of if you think you can continue or you can pass a quick concussion protocol questioning or whatever he did to assess him in a minute or two. So yeah, it was kind of weird.
Exactly, especially when you go like, this is one of their biggest pay-per-views of the entire year, so the emotion and the adrenaline is probably what's keeping Matt Hardy awake. But you can see by the fact that he's literally being dragged to the ring that his heart is in it, yes, but his mind is literally and figuratively not in it.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to sound like preachy or anything, but having been in the military, or still in the military, having been deployed to a combat area, you'll see guys who take like IED blasts and stuff like that, and yeah, sure, after the blast they seem fine, but over the years you can see they mentally begin to degrade, and you're like, oh, this is a combination of PTSD. This is where the TBI, traumatic TBIs, CT sets in, and people still question like, how did this Chris Benoit thing happen? This is exactly why. Yeah.
So this is a really kind of a dark note on AEW here, and it should have just ended. I mean, Matt Hardy, he missed that table and crashing down from, I don't know, it's probably 12, 15 feet or so onto the concrete. Yeah, that was the end of it. You just have to deal with whatever fallout. If you call it out and do a no contest, I mean, that's probably the easiest thing to get out of. But if you call it off because he can't continue, then he lost the match. And now was obviously major storyline complications here, because if he lost the match, then he's supposed to leave AEW. So that's one heck of a pickle to be in. So one of the it really made no sense. That stipulation made no sense to begin with anyways, but yeah. So
you could have read it off. It's not a big deal.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, do you think if they didn't have that stipulation, they might have been a little quicker to just waive it?
I think so. I mean, I don't think it'd be an end all be all, but I think with Matt Hardy being the character that he is and how in depth he gets, I can see why he would want to stay in it for the sake of kayfabe.
Yeah, but since they just went basically straight to the finish after that, it's like, well, one, we're dealing with kind of the cringiness of having to watch a guy who just got knocked out and should not be continuing on. And then they just went straight to the finish anyways, and the match was going to fall flat at that point, so waving it off probably would have just been the smartest thing to do here.
I agree, and imagine, like, I still love AEW, I still love Matt Hardy, but imagine if he fell off the scaffolding.
Right. I mean, Sammy had to like pull him up at one point. I saw like he was having trouble climbing the scaffolding to get to Sammy, so Sammy actually kind of had to steady him at one point to pull him up.
Exactly. I feel like we're just going to be at it a lot on Twitter for these takes by pro wrestlers if they actually were to hear this, but at the same time, you need to have a little bit of humility. Stop the match. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
especially when you have like 3 or 4 kids at home.
Oh my God! Did you see Rebby's
wife?
Yes. Rebby's text messages to him that she posted?
Yes.
She's like, "What the f are you doing? What, you are an effing moron," and all this stuff. It was yeah.
Good luck with the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, and actually, I'm seeing a tweet right now from Sean Ross Sapp. Rebby noted that Matt Hardy definitely has a concussion and is still at the hospital, and this was as of 17 minutes ago.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, that is not good. So we will see how this goes, and but yeah, definitely. I think this is kind of the talk of the town, so we might as well start it off.
That makes sense. I get it.
All right, let's back up a little bit. Did you watch any of the buy-in?
I caught the tail end of Private Party versus the Dark Order.
Yeah, so really, for the most part, the buy-in was not much. It was mostly hyping up promo packages and all that fun stuff. Again, I'm going to continue to hammer this. A lot of these promo packages, why wasn't this stuff on Dynamite? Because a lot of these sit downs, it's like, okay, you could have spread it out over the last 4 weeks and brought some of these promo packages in, because a lot of these matches were set weeks ago and we knew what was going to happen. So bringing in some of these promo packages into Dynamite would have made a lot of sense. I also checked out the countdown as well. Most of the promo packages were just pulled over into the buy-in as well. So if you saw the promo packages on the buy-in, you pretty much saw the countdown as well. But again, this seems to be kind of a little bit of a miss from AEW. It seems to be a constant thing that they just don't pull in enough promo packages and stuff to flesh out some of these characters, and they put them on shoulder content as like this countdown show or a YouTube video that 90% of the viewers didn't see.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's almost like they're clinging to the extreme fan base who are going to go out of their way to watch their stuff on YouTube and BTE, but if you're talking about the people who solely watch stuff on TNT, they're never going to catch it, especially when you don't advertise it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you advertised that, hey, this is going to be on the YouTube channel on Monday, then I could excuse it a little bit more, but they don't even like throw out those types of things either. As far as the matches that were on, there was Serpentico versus Joey Janela. It wasn't that great. Serpentico was not very good in this. It was just pretty much a back and forth. Joey hits a Death Valley driver, and then a super kick, but misses a moonsault. But he does end up finishing it off in the end when Joey comes back with a huge lariat and then hits the the Macho Man style diving elbow that he likes to do, and he picks up the victory there. And then there was Private Party versus Dark Order of Alex Reynolds and John Silver. Decent match. One thing that I liked is that Dark Order intervened in the middle of Private Party trying to hit Silly String, because I hate that move so much. But in the end, we do have Private Party hitting Gin and Juice to pick up the victory. And then we go into the show of All Out. I had switched over, so I started watching All Out as soon as it hit, and you had switched over. It looks like you were slightly delayed. It was pretty funny because JR had joined the commentary desk, and he's like, he was saying, all right, and now we're going to be going into AEW All Out in picture, right as it was fading out. It was really funny. A really funny shot at him, because he's always talking about going to the picture-in-picture and whatnot. We start off the show with the Tooth and Nails match with Britt Baker and Big Swole. And this was a cinematic match at, quote-unquote, Britt's dental office. I'm pretty sure that was not her real office, because her real office is in more of a brick facade type of building. And the referee comes in with Big Swole, like in a town car, and she goes in, and Rebel is dressed as a receptionist, but she has a face mask on, and she's trying to pretend that she is not Rebel, and Big Swole is not falling for it. So they fight a little bit. She finds a exam room, and there's like blood on the floor. She's like, what the heck is going on? Then Britt Baker smashes her over the head with a diploma from behind. They fight out to the outside, out back, where Britt has her utility vehicle, Rolls Royce, and they fight up onto that. Britt DDTs Swole onto the top of the vehicle, but Swole, she tries to throw Swole into the dumpster, but Swole actually ends up throwing Rebel into the dumpster. They fight back into the office. Britt tries to use a drill on Swole's head, and she drills into like the chair that she was on, and then Britt tries to stab Swole with a syringe of Novocaine, but she ends up stabbing herself in the leg with it. And then Swole knocks out Britt with the sedative gas. I don't know what type of gas she was supposedly using. Puts her out and gets the victory. I thought this match was god awful.
Yes, and I agree with that. And what I keep telling myself in the back of my mind is if I take it as like a very silly slapstick Naked Gun meets like the Three Stooges thing, it's not that bad. Each person as a character was very funny. Like Big Swole just kind of going in there with like, I can't believe this is actually occurring attitude. Same with the ref, and Rebel and Britt Baker doing their thing. But overall, frame by frame, like this kind of sucked.
Yeah, like I don't know. They should have consulted the guys from the Elite, because I'm pretty sure they understand the audience's sense of humor a little bit more. And this just kind of, I think, like what happened in the match, they could have done the exact same stuff, but I think the acting needed to change and the attitudes needed to change a little bit. Because I think it's funny that, you know, Britt was going to try to inject Swole with some Novocaine, and she ends up getting it turned on her, and she gets stabbed in the leg herself. I mean, that's fine. We figured, you know, some laughing gas is going to come into play. She gets knocked out. I mean, that's all kind of like the gags were fine, but like the glue that held it all together, there was just something really off about it.
Mm-hmm. I think if you would have done this more in a stadium with dentistry tools, it could have worked a little more. Like if you do the Novocaine spot a little bit earlier, and then she just can't use her leg for the rest of the match.
Yeah. Just actually, that would be really good if she actually got Novocaine in the leg way earlier, and she was like limping around. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it was what it was. This was definitely the low point of the show, I think. So it was all uphill from here.
Yeah, I mean, if you start rock bottom early, you can only go up.
Yeah. So then we go into our regular kind of card here where we have actual wrestling matches, and we start off with Jurassic Express and the Young Bucks. This came out of them having an 8-man tag back on Dynamite where the Young Bucks and Jurassic Express teamed up, and since they were the victors, they were going to face each other at All Out. So this match I thought was actually a very solid match. It could have just been my wanting to see something a lot better than the match prior, but I think even in isolation, this match was quite good. Jungle Boy got in a lot of fun stuff here. There was a dive from Luchasauras out over the padding, over the barricade into the crowd. So he like wipes out like 10 wrestlers who were sitting ringside. That was pretty fun. We have Jungle Boy doing his kind of springboard half twist into a swinging DDT that he likes to do. The Bucks then double team on Jungle Boy near the end of it and get a near fall before Jurassic Express. They counter out of a Meltzer driver attempt. Nick has to break up a near fall after Matt gets hit with the extinction level event. And then we finished it off. The Young Bucks hit a double super kick on a Jungle Boy, so they hit super kick party and then hit the BTE trigger and get the victory. I thought this was a very fun match, and this would have been a great way to have started. It basically did start off the card.
I agree. The Super Bucks versus Lucha Express was a fantastic start. No, I think both sides were fantastic. I think Jungle Boy is seriously underrated, but I think that's kind of a common concept. And I'm a big fan of like the big guy, little guy combination with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. Even as like a little kid when I started watching wrestling, I remember like Kane and X-Pac. I was like, this is so badass. A giant guy and a little guy. A couple things that I noted was there was a cross body from Jungle Boy. He must have got like 15 feet up in the air. And there was a tandem choke slam Poison Rana where I forget which Jackson they both hit, but at the same exact time, Luchasaurus hit this mega choke slam on one Jackson while Jungle Boy hit a Poison Rana on the other.
I must have been typing because when you said that in the chat room, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to go back, but I didn't have time to go back and watch it.
The timing of it was pinpoint perfect. And after that, I think the extension level event is such a good name. Such a good name.
Yeah, I'm glad they finally gave it a name. They gave it a name like a month and a half ago, but yeah, they were using it for a little bit before that. All in all, as far as the attitudes of the Young Bucks going into the match on Wednesday, they were all business and PO'd because of losing the gauntlet match because of Hangman. Here we have them not as pissed off as they were. So they actually did pose on the stage tonight, but they still had a bit of an attitude towards Jurassic Express. I believe one of them gave them the middle finger at one point and had some words here and there and kind of butting heads, getting in each other's faces and yelling at each other and pie facing each other a couple times. So interesting attitude shift from the Young Bucks, and I'm curious how this is going to continue to go, especially kind of how it played out after the tag title match, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, not that I have an issue with face bucks. I like face bucks, but heel ones are so much more interesting to watch. And one thing that I really noticed right at the end when the pin happened on Jungle Boy, instead of Luchasaurus going and rage attacking the Young Bucks, he immediately went to check on the welfare of Jungle Boy. And I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. All right, then we had the 21-man casino battle royale. It starts off with Trent, Christopher Daniels, Jake Hager, The Blade, and Ray Phoenix. So really the story of this match was how it all came down. There were a lot of teams in this match. So no one actually got eliminated until after the second group came in. So we can just jump ahead here. And so we have Kazarian, Chuck Taylor, Will Hobbs, Santana, and Ortiz. So here we have, for teams, we have Blade and Phoenix, we have Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, Chuck Taylor and Trent, and then Santana and Ortiz. So we have 4 teams, plus Jake Hager is part of the inner circle, so I guess I can include him with Santana or Ortiz as well. So we have 4 teams in here, all kind of trying to work together. And I don't think anybody actually got eliminated until the third group came in. We have Brian Cage, Pentagon, and Lance Archer, and Butcher, Eddie Kingston, Ricky Starks, Darby Allin. They all come in. And then we start getting some eliminations here. We have Kazarian gets eliminated, and we have Darby Allin in there, and he's fighting with Brian Cage for a bit. And then we get our 21st man surprise entrant, and it is Matt Sydal. For those who are not in the know outside of WWE, Matt Sydal was Evan Bourne, and he runs in, goes up to the top rope to do a shooting star press, and he flubs it right away. Not a good start. I felt so bad for the dude.
Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about it all morning. I'm like, oh my god, like this guy has not been on like the big screen for a long time. And everyone was amped to see him, and then that happens. I feel so bad. But I got to give him props. Like, he kept the intensity up, and he kept the emotion up for the rest of it. I don't know if I would have had that kind of moxie.
Yeah, he was fine, but basically he went to, put the power into his legs, and his feet just like slipped straight off, and he just went straight down. And luckily he did tuck, so his head missed the top turnbuckle, so he didn't crack himself there. And then he did kind of pretty much flat backed right on the ground. So he was fine. He eventually kind of popped right back up and just continued on with the match. But that was probably the most embarrassing fail that I've seen in a long time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was thinking more about it, and I got to thinking how they kept saying more about the heat and humidity. So I'm currently temporarily living right on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, and I'm longitudinally, I looked it up, I'm pretty much on par with Jacksonville, Florida. And so I'll work out at like 2-3 p.m. and I'll do a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of cardio, burpees, etc. And like by the time I'm done, I'm absolutely roasted. So I'm thinking more about it, and I'm like, you got 20 guys who are already in the ring, sweating and oiled up and hitting that turnbuckle over and over and over. It's not unsurprising that he slipped out.
Yeah. Then we have a few little like Hoss battles here. We have Brian Cage and Lance Archer exchanging at points. We have what was his first name? Will Hobbs. Mm-hmm. That guy is massive. He's just like throwing people around as well. Eventually, Brian Cage hit a standing head scissors to Lance Archer, which was crazy. And then Lance Archer eliminates Brian Cage and Will Hobbs. And then we get down to our final 4 here. We have Sydal, Butcher, Lance, and Eddie Kingston. They're all fighting. Sydal takes out Butcher. Then Lance throws or hits Matt Sydal with the blackout. And then Eddie Kingston finishes off Matt Sydal, sends him to the floor. And then Butcher and Blade come back out to try and help Eddie while Jake the Snake is trying to freak out Eddie Kingston with a snake that he has in a bag at ringside. I'm guessing he didn't actually have a snake in there because he actually used the bag as a weapon at one point. So I'm hoping there was not actually a live. We didn't actually see the snake, so I'm hoping there was not actually a live snake in there, and he was kind of trying to bash Eddie Kingston with it. And he keeps trying to freak out Eddie Kingston. He is like sitting up on the top turnbuckle, facing the outside, kind of sideways, and Lance eventually eliminates Eddie Kingston to win the battle royale and get a world title shot at the winner of the title match at the end of the night. Interesting choice, but I think it was kind of the logical choice given who was in there of Lance Archer, his only loss being to Cody at the end of the TNT title tournament.
Yeah, it did make sense, especially with the win-loss record. I had my personal fan favorites in there, but the fact that they didn't win didn't really upset me. And I don't know, Jake the Snake just keeps cracking me up, especially with the stuff he's doing, and his one-liners like busting a nut is unbelievable. But the fact that Brian Cage, at the size that he is, can do a head scissors and a super kick is incredible. If there's a video on YouTube of him at a signing where somebody sticks a sticker on one of his lats and he can't pick it off because he's too big. And I gotta give props to Will Hobbs. I had never really seen the guy before, and like the spine buster he did, and just the fact that how fast he can move, I gotta give that guy props. He was awesome.
Oh, we gotta actually, I skipped over a whole thing right here. We gotta talk about the Darby Allin spot. So Ricky Starks is out there. He goes under the ring, pulls out a body bag, and yes. Brian Cage is in the ring. He opens it up and pulls out a bag of thumbtacks. He empties the bag of thumbtacks into the body bag. They stuff Darby Allin into the body bag that is now full of thumbtacks. They zip it up, and Brian Cage tosses Darby Allin over the top rope onto the stage, and he just like crashes and burns, and that was nuts. And then now we have kind of a bit of a pile of tacks in the ring as well. So that spine buster he gave, I believe it was to Matt Sydal. Will Hobbs gave that spine buster. I believe it was to Matt Sydal right onto the thumbtacks as well. So it's like, oh man, that is not fun. That is not a way to go.
No, that spot was insane. Prior to then, and knowing Darby Allin, I don't know if those were gimmicks thumbtacks or not.
They weren't, because I saw a couple stuck into somebody else's back.
Oh my goodness. Prior to this, I thought the most insane spot that AEW had done was, I think it was during the Cracker Barrel Challenge, where they stuffed Jimmy Havoc's mouth full of paper thumbtacks and taped it shut.
Yep.
I think this one takes the cake.
Yeah, that one was pretty crazy. I believe Darby has done the skateboard with tacks on the bottom twice now. I think he did it during that Cracker Barrel Challenge match. I think he did it to Joey Janela in that match, and then of course he did it to Ricky Starks a couple weeks ago. So those are some pretty crazy. Darby Allin has been involved with the crazy spots in this company.
Yeah, after I got nothing after that.
So moving, what do you think about Lance Archer going on in getting a world title shot here? Does it make sense for him to? He's probably going to be the kind of the TV match prior to Full Gear.
I'd agree with that, and I don't think it's going to be a clean finish. I would imagine Eddie Kingston, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks will intervene somehow.
It could be a bit of a cluster because everybody's trying to get back at each other for everything that happened. Could be interesting. But one thing I don't know, the Ricky Starks and Darby Allin feud has been going on for a while now. I don't understand why they didn't have a singles match in here. It didn't really make sense. They weren't gonna. Neither of them won the Battle Royale, so I don't know why you'd bother putting them in the Battle Royale when they have a hot feud going on. It probably would have been a good singles match to have.
I like to imagine this is leading up to something bigger.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're gonna. Well, at this point, they're probably going to either do it as a big during probably the show. They're probably going to have another one of those kind of like named Dynamite shows, maybe like 2 weeks of special shows. That kind of seems what they've been doing now between their pay-per-views to kind of give kind of a 2 nights of super card Dynamite, I guess you could call it. So maybe they'll either do that or push it all the way out to finishing off this feud at Full Gear in some crazy ass match.
Yeah, fine by me. Build it up.
Next up, we have Hikaru Shida defending her title against Thunder Rosa. In what I think was probably the best women's match I've seen in AEW. This was very strong. We have Thunder Rosa coming right out of the gate trying to put on submissions. We have Shida hitting a massive Hurricanrana, and then they basically do mirror drop kicks at each other, and they continue to fight. Rosa does a, I forget what the actual move was. She hit a Death Valley driver onto Shida on the ring apron at one point. At another point, they were actually right before that, they were up on the turnbuckle. It looked like Hikaru Shida was going to give Thunder Rosa a avalanche suplex off the second turnbuckle onto the staging, but they did not go that way. I thought they were actually going to do it because they were teasing it, but then they get down onto the apron. That's where she hits the Death Valley driver on the edge of the apron. A bunch of near falls. We have Shida trying to submit Rosa with the stretch muffler. She tried to get the full metal muffler, but Rosa got to the ropes to break that up. Rosa comes back with a backstabber for a 2 count. And then Shida hits this massive running knee. She like clocked her hard, and she picks up the victory. I thought this was super solid, especially both of these women really lay their stuff in. I was really impressed with Thunder Rosa back on Wednesday. She has some killer drop kicks. Oh, there was even one in here that I just remembered, where Shida was sitting against the bottom rope on the stage side, and Thunder Rosa just laid in this basement drop kick, and she just like sent her over the bottom rope and rolling out to the stage. She really lays it in.
That bottom rope spot, whenever anyone does it, is an unbelievable move. You're like, God, that just looks like an absolute mouthful of feet.
Yeah, and when she did that to Serena Deeb on Wednesday, she was in the Tree of Woe and upside down, so she laid it into her stomach so hard. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know why any woman would even want to work with her, because she just like full on just decked her.
I sit here and I try and figure out how they gimmick some of these things, and I'm like, you on that one, I think you might be eating a lot of that.
Yeah, I loved all of Thunder Rosa's facial expressions after she had kicked out of a running knee mid-match. She like had a devilish smile on her face, something that you'd like see Moxley do if he just got like cracked over the head with the glass and he's just bleeding all over himself, and he has that demonic smile that he throws. And she kind of did the same thing after kicking out of a near fall.
Yes, as much as I love Hikaru Shida, Thunder Rosa really blew me away with this, and I really hope she comes on to AEW much more often. It just, the way she moves, her athleticism, and I forget, I don't know what the name of the style is, but the face paint is spot on.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, yep, there it is. Yeah, the way she paints that on looks incredible.
Yeah, so yeah, she's got a very fun look. Yeah, she's super athletic, and she hasn't even been wrestling that long. I think less than 6 years,
something like that.
Yeah. And she is doing really good. And I even going back to Wednesday, I hope we see Serena Deeb in one, because she was doing a lot of coaching down in NXT, but she was super solid. So I'd like to see her get signed as well. So I think they can pull in a few really good free agents right now. I know Thunder Rosa is not a free agent, but everybody's kind of furloughed right now from NWA. So, you never know. Just right now, we have Daxers in the chat says Hikaru Shida looked greenish versus Thunder Rosa.
I don't know about that. I think maybe it's a different style that we're not used to.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go that far. I mean, Shida has always looked really good, and I think that they did give Thunder Rosa a lot of the match, so maybe it looked like Hikaru Shida might have been a little weak, but I don't think she looked green. I didn't see anything that really stood out of any screwed up spots or anything like that.
I think it's fair to give a lot of the offense to Thunder Rosa, because you can still give Hikaru Shida the win and then still make Thunder Rosa look like an absolute monster in defeat.
Yeah, and I've never had a problem with people taking a lot of the match, because it really makes out whoever is getting beat on look tougher. Like they weathered this storm and still managed to finish out the win. Like they're just chiseled out of stone or something.
Everyone wins.
Yep. Next up, we have the Dark Order of Brodie Lee, Colt Cabana, Stu Grayson, Evil Uno. So basically the top tier of the Dark Order versus the Natural Nightmares, Scorpio Sky, and Matt Cardona. So this came out of Brodie Lee. He is now the TNT champion after beating Cody in basically a squash match, and then continuing to beat on Cody after he got put onto a stretcher, choking out Brandy as well as Anna Jay did. I love the Get Smart reference with labeling Anna Jay as number 99. I don't know if anybody else has caught that, but I think it's funny. And so we have this 8-man. They brawl immediately as they get into the ring. We have Matt Cardona looks jacked. He looks, either he has gotten bigger or he just looks bigger because the people in AEW were smaller. I'm not sure which one. I'm guessing he just got bigger.
I think it's the latter, but I think it's also the fact that he's been off for like 3 months and like, all right, I know I'm going to make a debut somewhere on TV. What should I do for the next 3 months? Get absolutely jacked.
Yeah, and Dustin had some interesting he had kind of a blue bodysuit. He had some painted on abs, which was actually a little comical, a little funny. And that was pretty fun. They all really looked good in this match. Dustin gets a hot tag at one point, takes out like the entire Dark Order. Of course, he has to hit his obligatory Canadian Destroyer. And really, the story comes out down near the end of this match. We have Brodie Lee is in. He's just beating down everybody. And we have who got laid out here? We have QT Marshall's getting laid out. He is like served up on a platter to Colt Cabana, and Colt Cabana just cannot put away QT Marshall. Dustin comes in as well. They have a fight. Brodie Lee drops Dustin with a lariat. Colt Cabana misses a moonsault, and Dustin actually rolls him up for the pin while everybody else is not paying attention. So we have Colt Cabana getting pinned, and Brodie Lee is pissed. After the match, we have Brodie Lee yelling at Colt, like, "How could you totally screw this up? I gave you him on a platter, and you messed this up." And Brodie Lee just walks off, leaving Colt Cabana behind, and Evil Uno kind of like picks him up and helps him out of the ring. Like, yeah, I've been on the other end of Brodie's meltdowns, so just stick it out. It happens.
As for as much as heel tactics as the Dark Order is, there's almost a face side of them that's I can't quite explain.
Yeah, I think it's because Brodie is so heelish, even to his own guys, that you kind of feel bad for him sometimes. Like, I feel bad for Evil Uno whenever I'm watching Being the Elite, and Evil Uno is usually on the receiving end of Brodie Lee. And then this past week, Brodie Lee passed off to Uno to I believe, hits Silvers. And Evil Uno's like, really? I get to do it? Thank you, Mr. Brodie. Like, he's all thankful that he's not the one on the receiving end of Brodie Lee's terror.
There's a goofy cult meets almost high school aspect to it, where everyone's getting along, but at the same time, there's like the one real popular kid who's kind of controlling everything and like, oh, you're going to let me do this? Thank you so much, sir. And then the fact that everyone kind of gets beaten down all the time, but then they come together as a group.
Yeah, they're all kind of like sharing in their misery together.
Yes, it's very interesting to watch. It's a very interesting dynamic.
And then after the match, we have a interview backstage with Dustin and Alex Marvez. I believe it is Alex Marvez. And he tells him that Tony has granted him a TNT title shot on Dynamite this Wednesday, and he is just like super thankful and saying, it's been such a long time since I've even had chance to go after some gold. And this, I thought he gave a really great emotional promo. Dustin Rhodes has always been a really good promo, so this was just your solid promo. And I love seeing Dustin Rhodes in AEW and looking really good. We were talking about that in the chat. You know, he's clean and sober, and he is in like the best shape he's ever been in.
It's very cool to watch him in this aspect, especially with the clean, the sober, being and what looks to be genuinely very, very happy with life.
Yeah, especially we've been watching him since he was a kid, and we followed him all the way through now when he starts off as the Natural and then goes through his Gold Dust and all his other phases. Good to see, and amazing that he's 50 years old and is probably doing some of the best wrestling I have seen him do in his entire career.
Best scoops, claim the business.
Then we have the AEW Tag Team Championship match against Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. They are defending the titles against FTR, Tully Blanchard at ringside. And boy, was this one heck of a match. I think this was probably the match of the night for me. They went about 30 minutes, just shy of 30 minutes. How they structured this match, they kind of went a bit on a sprint early on, lots and lots of strikes. And then kind of like midpoint of this match, they started having a bunch of these near falls, and then they kind of slowed it down where FTR kind of gets back into their wheelhouse, doing a lot of mat work, doing a lot of headlock takeovers, and just kind of working over the neck on the mat, slowing down the match here. We have Kenny hitting a Tiger Driver 98 for a near fall on Wheeler at one point. And then Wheeler actually counters out of a one-winged angel attempt. And then they start actually working over Kenny's knee a lot. They are just brutally attacking the knee. They wrap it around the corner post at one point. And Kenny is basically on a bummed wheel for a lot of the match. And Dax puts on an inverted figure four onto Kenny, and he fights out of that, getting to the ropes, and they continue to go after Kenny's leg. This keeps going on every time somebody gets tagged in. They end up taking out Adam Page in some manner, so he keeps getting knocked off the apron, so he can't get a tag a few points. Kenny and Hangman Page work really well throughout this match. There's one point where they hit a bunch of tandem moves, and Hangman Page puts his hands up. He wants some high fives, and Kenny hesitates for a second here, but then gives the high five, and they continue on. And nearing the end of this match here, we have Kenny. He gets taken out on the outside with an electric chair bulldog to the floor, and then back in the ring, they hit it again, and they hit it on Adam Page, where Kenny manages to barely make the save for the near fall there, and then Page moves off, and they're going to attempt to do the last call. And well, actually, we have Kenny's kind of holding back. He's holding back Wheeler, because he just can't like run around because his knee is just, or his leg is just hurting him. So we have Adam Page going for the buckshot lariat, and actually Wheeler ducks, but so does Kenny. So He does not accidentally hit him, and then Kenny lets Wheeler go. He goes for a V-trigger, but accidentally ends up hitting Adam Page with the V-trigger. And then FTR hit a mind breaker to Kenny for a 2 count, but then hit a mind breaker on Adam Page to pick up the win. This was a very solid match. I don't think it beat Kenny Omega and Page versus the Young Bucks, but this was very close to getting into that territory.
I completely, you took the words out of my mouth. Match of the night for sure. Not as good as the Bucks versus Omega and Page, but very, very close second. And I can't wait to see how this is going to continue to elevate the storyline as this progresses. As much as it sucks to see I'm assuming the end of Omega and Page, the story's only going to get better because of it.
Yeah, this story has been like a car crash in slow motion for going on almost 10 months now, because this whole story kind of started back in November at this point. So we're like 10, 11 months in here. And after the match is where it got really interesting. Page is completely on Dream Street, and he goes for a hug and or kind of goes towards Kenny, is like, can you help me type of deal, and he just falls flat. We also have Kenny had grabbed a table that was at ringside. I think the librarians had their tea set on it or something like that, and it looked like he used it to he was mad at FTR, and he looked like he was going to take out some frustrations on FTR, and then he turns around. We have Page is kind of leaning up against the ropes, facing away, and it looks like Kenny might use it on Hangman Page, and this is where he throws it down, and then Page kind of reaches for Kenny, and Kenny just moves out of the way. He splats face first. Kenny then just leaves the ring. He goes up to the tunnel, turns around for a second, looks at Adam Page, who is just lying in the middle of the ring, face down, then turns around and he just beelines it out. The Young Bucks are back there, and they're like, what's going on? Like we need to talk about this. What is going on with you? And he keeps walking out into the parking lot, jumps into an SUV, and is driven away with the Young Bucks. Kenny is saying that he's done with this, and he's had enough, and he drives off. Young Bucks are just standing there baffled. They have no idea what's going on, and that is where this is left hanging.
Yeah, and not a criticism at all, but I'm confused trying to figure out what exactly is going to happen next, because the Bucks kicked Page out of the Elite. Omega has essentially abandoned Page, but then the Bucks are still trying to get Omega to reason a little bit. And not criticism again, but I'm very curious to see where this goes next, because you can see that the Bucks are turning heel. Omega's just about there, and now they're kind of leaving everyone behind.
Yeah, so I would love to see the cleaner come back. So we have heel Kenny Omega. We also have the Bucks turning heel. I'd like to see a heel Elite, because I think that would make for some amazing television. Though my biggest problem with that happening is, what do we do with the Bucks versus FTR storyline? Do we have to beat down the Bucks so they're just kind of pushed out of the rankings, so they have to work their way up? Because having a heel Bucks versus a heel FTR, I'm not sure how well that would work.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember the last time we had a legitimate heel versus heel story that goes for a few months. So sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I mean, it worked in New Japan with Bullet Club being heels, but they were heels in Japan, but in the eyes of like the gaijin or the basically everybody outside of Japan, they were faces. So it was kind of like it was like the Canadians problem where Bret Hart would be a heel everywhere else, but but in Canada.
Mm.
So I'm curious how those work, because I don't think that dynamic really works in this particular promotion. So be very interesting to see.
Yeah, can't wait.
Next up, we have the Mimosa Mayhem match. They have two like 500-gallon vats on either side of the ring, kind of these round pool looking things. And each side is also kind of like dropped into like a piece of staging. So they kind of have up near like the front of the ring, they have the Mimosa vat, and then to the back they have like basically a half of ring worth of stage, and then on the other side it's just swung around the opposite direction. So this match, they made clear that for the possibility of getting dunked in the Mimosa is you have to have been fully submerged in it. So if your leg falls into it or somebody tries to give you a swirly in it, then that is not the end of the match. You can also win by pinfall or submission, but otherwise this is a no DQ match. So rope breaks are not a thing because you can't get DQ'd for not letting go of the submission hold. So that's where it goes. We have Orange Cassidy. Looks like he is going to put his hands in his pockets, but he rushes Jericho, who hits a code breaker right out of the gate for a near fall. And then we go from there. We have them. This is probably one of the most suspenseful matches I have seen in a very long time, because they went out and fought on those extra pieces of staging around the Mimosa matches constantly. They also had little tables set up with like a champagne bucket with ice and a little bit of the bubbly as well, and like a serving pitcher and whatnot. So we have Jericho picking up the table at one point, using it as a weapon on Orange Cassidy, and it looked like they were going to go for a power, like Jericho was going to power bomb him into the Mimosa, but Orange Cassidy manages to swing around a little bit and he gets power bombed onto the staging. We have them jockeying for position. They get thrown off the staging onto the floor, and then constantly fighting around the Mimosa. So on one side, there's not much of the stage at all. They probably have like 2 feet to work with on one side, and maybe like a foot really on the edge away from the ring. They're just fighting around. At one point, I thought Jericho was going to trip and actually fall into it because he was like using the very tiny sliver of staging. We have Orange Cassidy getting put through one of those tables on the side. And we have Orange Cassidy hitting a Michinoku driver at one point for a 2 count. They exchange a ton of strikes, and then Orange Cassidy hits a Stun Dog Millionaire, and but then Chris Jericho puts on the Walls of Jericho. Interesting thing, they're actually using the name now for the Walls of Jericho, which I thought was a WWE property. So maybe it is not. Maybe they have figured out some sort of trademark dispute that quietly got looked at.
I just saw something on that. I don't remember the exact details, but there was not a lawsuit, but kind of like a let's meet in the middle kind of thing. Jericho gets to keep his name and Lionheart, but he loses Y2J and something else, and I can't remember what it is.
Okay, so that's probably not a big deal then, because he wasn't using really Y2J that much anyways these days. So this continues on, and so he's in the Walls of Jericho. And Orange Cassidy drags himself over to the rope, pulls himself under the bottom rope, and grabs a pitcher. I'm guessing it was plastic. A pitcher. He dunks it in the mimosa. So he now is in the walls of Jericho, and he's holding a full pitcher of mimosa. Jericho drags him back into the ring, and Jericho like turns around for a second to look at Orange Cassidy to see what's going on, and that is when he throws the mimosa in his face. So now he's got a face full of alcohol, which is probably not good on the eyes. Orange Cassidy hits a Superman punch, and then hits a Frankensteiner and a penalty kick, and then hits the tornado DDT for another near fall. He goes up top, and Chris Jericho hits a code breaker, and then they fight a little bit more. Looks like Jericho is going to toss Orange Cassidy over the top into the mimosa, but Jericho can't. He gets pushed off to the outside. They work their way up to the turnbuckle, so Jericho's back is towards the vat of mimosa. Orange Cassidy hits a Superman punch, and Jericho kind of waffles back a little bit, but he's still holding onto the ropes. So Orange Cassidy gets a running start, hits the opposite ropes, and runs in, hits a second Superman punch, and Chris Jericho goes flying into the mimosa, and Orange Cassidy is the victor of the three match series.
I loved this match. It was as silly and suspenseful as it was the perfect match to have right before the main event, to just completely take you out of the element of a serious wrestling match that was the tag team championship, have some goofiness while still having very, very, very good wrestling with an edge of suspense, to then lead you into the main event. And man, that's a lot of mimosa.
I'm curious what it actually was.
It looked pretty clear, because I remember Jericho kind of floating in it. I'm like, I don't know if it's alcohol and orange juice. That seems very syrupy. I don't know if he'd be floating that well.
Yeah. Well, actually, you'd probably be floating even higher if it was that, because it'd have a really higher specific gravity. So he might actually be floating higher.
That's true.
Up.
A lot of salt, too.
But yeah, I thought this match was super fun. It was ridiculously suspenseful. I'm like, oh, well, it would really suck if one of them screwed up and just fell in. Like I wasn't even thinking about it like being suspenseful as part of the story. I was suspenseful like, are they going to screw this up and accidentally fall into the mimosa and like end the match early?
I don't want to sound dark here, but given the previous events of the night, better not somebody fall into there and add more time onto the show that needs to be filled.
Right. And then I think I actually threw into the chat, I'm like, oh, what happens if they both fall in at the same time? Are we going to get Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho 4?
Go to a best of 5 series.
Right. But that did not happen. But I thought it sounded really corny when they first announced it, but this match blew away all my expectations and was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. All about it. I like a good amount of silly in wrestling.
All right, and then we go on to the final match of the evening, which is Jon Moxley defending his championship against MJF, the undefeated MJF, versus with Wardlow at ringside. And really heavily in the beginning of this match, the story is Jon Moxley wants to take it to the outside because that's where he's most effective, and MJF wants to stay in the ring as much as possible. So we have lots of typical heel style throwback wrestling from MJF, lots of headlock takeovers and lockups and holding the guy down, holding Moxley down. And then we have MJF getting sent to the outside, and he quickly gets back into the ring. And then he gets sent to the outside again, and Jon Moxley goes for like the slingshot over the top rope to the floor, but he lands on his feet right as MJF is like jumping back into the ring. And then MJF gets thrown out again, and Jon Moxley fakes him out. He looks like he's going to go for the springboard. He jumps up, and right as MJF jumps back into the ring, and Moxley stomps him right onto the back of the head. And then eventually they do get out onto the outside. Jon Moxley drops MJF crotch first right on the barricade. He has a little bit of a stare down with Wardlow to back off because Wardlow was actually pretty close nearby with most of the action. Jon Moxley actually starts pulling MJF's fingers apart, and the ref is like, you got to get this back inside the ring. You can't win out here on the outside. They fight back into the ring, and then MJF starts trying to go for the armbar, but he holds on. He gets out of it, and then they fight out onto the apron, and this is where MJF kind of like pulls Moxley down, and Moxley lands. Most of his body lands on the floor, but his shoulder gets cracked right on the top of the apron, and Moxley then sells a kind of like a dislocated shoulder type of deal throughout the rest of this match. There's one point where he's pushing himself and banging against the bottom turnbuckle, trying to pop his shoulder back into place, or at least try to make it feel better. And constantly throughout this, he is selling the ring. He tries to go for a Gotch style pile driver at one point, but his arm just gives out. They fight back and forth in the ring, out of the ring. MJF gets thrown in the barricades, and was this the match where the barricade just like flung open because it wasn't actually attached to the other set of barricades?
At one point, I remember it opening up, yes.
Yeah. And then I think a whole like row of them got knocked over at one point too. And then now that MJF, he just starts going after that arm and trying to get on the Fujiwara armbar that he calls Salt of the Earth. And back on the outside, we have Moxley slingshotting MJF into the post, and he gets busted open. I'm pretty sure he gigged on that one. And so throughout the rest of this match, MJF is bleeding all over the place. There is a callback where Jon Moxley bites MJF's forehead, which MJF did to him on Dynamite earlier in the week. Moxley manages to counter out of an armbar attempt. Then they go for a striking exchange, and Jon Moxley throws his left arm that had been being worked on, and he just like winces in pain. MJF spits in Moxley's face. Jon hooks up like he's going to hit the paradigm shift, but he has to release it when he realizes that would get him disqualified and he would lose the championship. And then we have them just going back and forth, and we have Wardlow jumping up onto the ring apron to pull the ref, and Wardlow tosses the Dynamite Diamond ring into the middle of the ring. It lands kind of in the middle. MJF gets down on his knees and picks up the ring. And when he looks up, he realizes that Jon is staring right at him. And Jon then eyeballs, like, this is great, very subtle, eyeballs the ref, realizes that the ref is distracted, picks up MJF, hits the paradigm shift behind the ref's back that Wardlow had pulled, and gets the victory. And Wardlow looks like he is about to get shot.
This match absolutely rocked. If it weren't for the tag match earlier, this would have been match of the night. And I gotta say, between MJF and Jon Moxley, this is some of the best character wrestling I've ever seen in a long time. They absolutely stuck with the fact that Mox is gonna kick your ass outside the ring, where MJF can technically get you and cheat heelishly while inside the ring, which they both played up completely.
I thought that, and I was, racking my head. I'm like, okay, how are they going to finish this match? Because they need to keep MJF strong because he is undefeated. So, and you need to give him something to bitch about. I thought I did not see this finish coming, but I thought it was the most creative way to finish this match, with Wardlow pulling the ref and distracting the ref. And Jon Moxley's like, hey, the ref's not watching, paradigm shift, and ends it.
It's the best ending you can get. I mean, I could probably sit here for a month and try and think about better ways to end it. I'm not going to get anything.
And I love how AEW does this, is they make the babyface the smart one to outwit the heel who...
Yes.
So this is very... MJF has been very Wile E. Coyote. He sets this stuff up, but it all backfires and blows up in his face.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he can, outside of Jon Moxley, he can still win while being a dick.
Yeah. Oh, it's just with Moxley where this stuff keeps blowing up in his face. I thought this was great. I love the build to this match. I think it might have gone a little long with him milking the fake injury, but all in all, I love the build up for this match. I love how Moxley pulled one over on them at the contract signing, and then MJF completely destroyed Moxley on Dynamite for the go home show, and then we have Moxley pulling one over on MJF again.
Yes, and actually we talked about this last week with MJF beating the snot out of Moxley. We were trying to figure out if he said "you're effing nuts" or "go effing nuts." It was
go effing nuts. So it was the veteran telling the young guy, "Hey, this is the time. Go crazy." So we make this look good.
And either way, either one is cool, because if it's "you're effing nuts" coming from Moxley, that's still a compliment. Then "go effing nuts" is him like giving you the attaboy, like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Like, they're both good answers.
Yeah. So yeah, what did you think overall of the pay-per-view in general? I thought this was a really good pay-per-view. I wouldn't put it at the top, but I'm probably not the bottom either.
Yeah, it's a happy medium. It had some excellent points, and I hate going back to it, but the Matt Hardy thing just it made me a little kind of like sick in my stomach as somebody who's like been hit in the head before. I'm like, don't like that.
Yeah, the Matt Hardy thing was obviously a downer. They definitely should have just ended the match and dealt with the fallout. And of course, the tooth and nails match just fell flat.
Nope.
I don't know if they just didn't have time to redo it, or if I think they filmed it on Thursday. So I think they had time that if other people had seen it, be like, we might want to redo this. I don't know.
So that makes it worse in my opinion, because I thought it was live.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was not live.
Oh, that's not good then.
Yeah, they definitely filmed it ahead of time, and I'm pretty sure I read they did it on Thursday. But even if they did it during the day on Saturday, it's like, yeah, this just did not fly very well. Yeah. But other than those two things, I thought this was a very wonderful pay-per-view. It went just shy of 4 hours, so I think this is actually their longest one, because I think they went off the air at 11:52 or something like that. So I think that's about the longest one. But
yeah, go ahead, please.
With them doing their pay-per-views 4 times a year, doing a 4-hour show, I am perfectly fine with it. It's not like they're doing this every single month. So getting a 4-hour show is perfectly, technically 5 if you watch the pre-show, but perfectly fine.
I'm all about it, because I'm way more invested. Like, every time when I used to watch WWE, I'd be kind of interested. I'd be more interested in the top 4. Whereas coming up, I was like, the week prior to All Out, I was like, I'm so excited for All Out. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's how it's been with me for all their pay-per-views. I've going into them, and then just watching a lot of the time, I'm like, oh my god, it's already 9:30 while I'm watching Dynamite or something. It's like, oh my god, there's only a half hour left in the show. That happens to me a lot. And then these pay-per-views, like, I get in, I'm like, oh my god, it's 11 o'clock already. Holy crap. So yeah, and I'm glad they gave everything quite a lot of time. They gave Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida 17 minutes, or at least they went 17 minutes. So that was fine. They gave, I think the tag match went a little long. They probably could have shaved it down a little bit. But I kind of like the format that they did. They kind of sprinted a bit in the beginning and then slowed it down in the middle, and then picked it up right at the end again. I thought that was, and I think that's a formula that's worked well for Kenny Omega in the past as well, especially like his matches with Okada and whatnot. Very similar kind of structure. So I thought that was good. I don't think anything's felt like it was short, or other than the Hardy Sammy thing, but we know why that went short, and nothing felt like it went ridiculously over time. A couple things might have been a couple minutes shorter, but it was fine.
I liked it, and I'm looking at my notes, and there's a line here that Tony Schiavone gave during the Moxley MJF match that 12, 13, 14 hours later is still cracking me up. I don't know if you heard it, but it's when Moxley atomic drops MJF onto the guardrail. Did you hear what he said?
Oh, I can't remember what he said, but I know he said something.
He punishes the perennium of MJF.
Yes.
And I have been laughing my butt off for about better half of a day for that. For anyone who doesn't know, I don't know what the language barrier is on your podcast.
As long as you don't say the F word, we're good.
Okay. The perennium, also known as the taint or gooch or grundle, if you were, was that is the perennium, which now makes Jon Moxley the perennium Punisher.
I am pretty sure that it was Excalibur that said that.
Oh, yeah. Either way, the perennium Punisher is fantastic.
Yeah, when he dropped him right on the barricade.
Right on it.
That probably does not feel good. There's no give there.
No.
I can understand when people do it onto the top rope or something, but that would hurt.
A lot of the promotions will use a kind of like padded, boxy looking thing. That's just a straight up bicycle rack.
Yeah. There was something I was about to look up right when you were saying that, but I did not, but that's okay. But overall, I thought this was really good. Looking forward to there's still storylines that are continuing on. Of course, we have Dark Order and the Nightmare Family. That story is going to continue on. Of course, Hangman, Omega, and the rest of the Elite, that storyline's continuing on. I'm guessing Moxley and MJF might continue on. We might be circling back to this again, either at Full Gear or maybe even Revolution, because MJF is going to have a lot to gripe about. And now we know who the next challenger most likely is going to be to Moxley, that being Lance Archer, which is a very interesting development because I'm not sure if you saw it. Did you see their match in New Japan?
No, but I've read about it. I know that there's history there.
Yeah, so that was really good. Their match that they did at the Tokyo Dome, the Texas death match. It wasn't really much of a death match, and it wasn't really much of a DQ match, no DQ match either. But it was a really good match. So they do have some history. So we have that to look out at as well. We also have new tag team champions. So I'm curious where FTR is going to go from here, because they've actually already challenged most of the top 5, if not all of the top 5. So we will see how that goes. And we have a lot of fallout from this show. So I am looking forward to, I believe they were supposed to preempt this week, but I think some NBA games got moved around, so they are going to be on Wednesday again this week, unopposed, whereas NXT is getting pushed to Tuesday. So it should be interesting how this fallout plays out.
Oh, and don't forget Darby Allin versus Team Taz.
Oh yeah, that storyline is going to continue on as well. So we have a lot going on. So it feels like a lot of things came to a head at this show, but they didn't. And I'm okay with that.
That long-term booking.
Yep. So do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up here?
No, I mean, I'm happy with the pay-per-view overall.
Cool. I was very happy. I'm interested to see how the numbers play out, how their buys go, because they've been doing around 100, between 100 and 120. I think 120 has been their highest. So we'll see how this goes and where it lands. So other than that, why don't you give everybody a rundown of where they can find you before we wrap it up here?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Dave Colarusso. Yeah, I have a podcast, Russo's podcast about anything. Talk about a lot of current events, mental health, especially during times of quarantine and lockdown. You can find me at just type in my name, Dave Colarusso, Colarusso, or you can find me on Instagram as well at Mighty Mouse 0913, and you can find other things about the Perennium Punisher.
And those links will be down in the description and the show notes. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're listening to this as a podcast, this show is done live over on YouTube, so please subscribe. And if you hit the bell notification, it will let you know as soon as I schedule a live stream. So I try to schedule them ahead of time as much as possible so you see them. Head over to iTunes, give us a review. Hopefully it's a 5-star. That really helps us. Share the content around. If you have any mailbag questions, especially if you disagree with us, shoot them to eric@thatswrestling.com. I'm also looking for a more help with the New Japan stuff. So if you're interested in co-hosting some New Japan content, shoot me an email, same place, eric@thatswrestling.com, and check out our Discord. Link is in the description and show notes. So for Dave Colarusso, my name is Eric LaRoche. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.